My name is Glenn Truitt. I am the owner of Half Price Lawyers here in Las Vegas, and this is my screen test for the legalizer. Well, I was born in a small town outside of Chicago, Elgin. My dad was facilities maintenance tech, and we moved all around the state looking for facilities work. We ended up first in Springfield, down in the southern part of the state at a university, and then when I was still just a kid, we moved to Colorado, in a small town between Boulder and Denver, where the families who couldn't afford to live in Boulder and Denver ended up living to commute to their jobs. Dad found work in facilities for high-tech companies, and my mom ran a daycare out of the house, so there were always other little kids running around. We always had a place to stay. We were renting, but they always made sure there was a roof over our heads. My first job was at 15 and a half, was at TCBY. After that, like most all-American kids, I got a job at McDonald's. I was not, I guess you would call it, customer friendly enough or easy enough on the eyes to be in the front, so they stowed me with the other teenage boys with the bad skin back in front of the grill, which only makes it worse. There were opportunities to go to college, but I really wanted to get out of Colorado, reinvent myself a little bit, so I joined the Navy at 18 and then shipped off to boot camp. And then while I was still in boot camp, actually, I got a call about the possibility of going to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, and I applied and got appointed to go. And then the next year I shipped up to Annapolis, where I got my undergrad degree in mathematics, and I went back to the submarine community where I was intended to go when I was still enlisted. I had 5 years or 2 years of training, 3 years on the boat, and then I had a decision to make. The Navy wanted me to stay and be an engineer, and I wanted to go to law school. When I was young, it was before the days of when bullies had been legislated out of schools. So I guess I always felt a sense of wanting to defend other people, to stick up for people that couldn't stick up for themselves. On the back burner for a long time, and there I was, 28 years old, and I think finally ready to not take no for an answer anymore, and to go ahead and do what I always wanted to do, which was to go become a lawyer and to help people out that couldn't help themselves. Like any aspiring law student, you have you know the big three. Those are in your mind, and those are the sort of the churches of law. You apply to those. The advice I got was go to the best school you get into. So I took a flyer and I applied to Harvard, to Stanford, and to Yale, the big three. And then I also applied to Emory. The Navy requires you to apply to one local school. I was in Georgia. And then I also applied to the University of Texas, which was the best state school at the time. So I got into everything except Yale, which was a bit of a surprise. And then I had to choose between Harvard and Stanford, which is an impossible decision to make for a 28-year-old naval officer who's never seen the world outside of the Navy as an adult. So I, believe it or not, I got a fortune cookie. I don't tell this story very often, but I got a fortune cookie, and I opened it up, and it said you were headed to a land of sunshine, and it seemed like as much serendipity as anything else. That was that. Packed up my stuff in a big yellow truck in 2002 and drove to California from Florida. In California. I didn't know anybody at the school. I hadn't been to the campus. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody or anything. I didn't know what to wear. With my first non-military college, I didn't know what to wear. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know you could walk on the grass. I didn't know any of it. I didn't know how to do school. So it was a big culture shock for me. And then Stanford has a lot of rich kids and from important families, and Chelsea Clinton was there. It was all happening there at the time, and so it was very odd for me to be at a place like that. I had a tough time fitting in. So like anybody else that has trouble fitting in, I ran for student government and became the student body president. So I guess if you can't fit in, you might as well just run to the front, which is what I did. About being a 28-year-old was that I wasn't relying on my parents' financials at that point, so I had my own financial existence at that point. I was making some money in the Navy, but not a lot. So there was some financial aid available in the form of grants for students in my position. That said, it's very expensive, as you might expect, and so the rest of it was loans, and really there was no money left for living. I lived on campus. Most law students didn't live on campus. I lived on campus all 3 years. My queen-size bed that I had from my apartment into this little graduate housing dorm room, it almost took up the whole bedroom. I just couldn't imagine sleeping on a twin-size bed again at 28 years old. Outside of the loans, it was all the money that I wanted for my own entertainment, food, whatever, was from working. So I worked every weekend, and anytime they called me, I said yes, no matter when it was, no matter what kind of show. I was always like, yeah. Well, the big firm wasn't for me. I started off with a big firm in Los Angeles, Century City, very fancy and great firm, but it wasn't a great fit for me. So I jumped off pretty early and left for a startup as general counsel for a couple of small companies. They got bought by bigger companies, and I got a chance to move up. I liked that gig. It was cool to be responsible for all of it, to have it all on your shoulders. It was the only thing that I felt close to what I had done when I was still on the submarine. So I missed that intensity, that people relying on you, that real sense of responsibility for what you were doing. Opportunity to take over half-price lawyers, which was and is the largest discount practice in the state. Thousands and tens of thousands of cases, thousands of new cases a year. The full spectrum, everything from bankruptcy to family law, divorce, custody, to criminal defense, to personal injury, to the business side, which was the stuff I had done before, healthcare. All the things that I had done before rolled into all these new things, and I was going to be in charge of all of it. Law firm that everybody can walk into and feel okay. We have, we're in a relatively plain building with relatively plain offices. There's no mahogany. There's no marble floors. There's no bronze bust of me in the lobby. We actually have 12 full-time attorneys, and all from top-tier law schools. There's 43 on the staff total. So we are one of the largest personal injury firms in Las Vegas, even though we are a full-service firm. So it's actually, we have 13,000 square feet in downtown Las Vegas. Griffin Mansion's case, Jeff Rosser from I think it's NBC Investigative Reports came out and did a piece on it for the Today Show that we were on. Essentially, it was a bunch of married couples who had signed up to get married at this beautiful mansion, and they had done years of them quite well, but they had never gotten licensed. And so when I finally came to roost, they just shut it down and didn't give anybody in there any money back. They just filed bankruptcy and went away. 20 couples that we represented in the case against the owners of the mansion and the wedding company in the bankruptcy and thereafter, and it was a really public case, crying brides and consoling grooms, and obviously the Today Show was a pretty big piece for us to get. So that was probably our highest profile case so far. Nobody that works here has to be here. They could all work someplace else. I could work someplace else. But we understand the exceptional public trust that we enjoy. In every culture around the world, there are advocates, there are lawyers everywhere. And we are strangers to the people that come in to talk to us. And what I try to make sure my lawyers understand is the extraordinary bravery it takes to walk into a place and to tell a stranger your problems, your worst problems. And if someone comes to you with a problem and you're not willing to put yourself in their shoes, you got no right representing them. No business. So I've collected people that believe in the vision that I have. Only a fool collects people that aren't smarter than he is. I'm not the smartest attorney in the office. I don't pretend to be. I hope I'm not. I hope I'm never again. But I believe in the vision as much or more than anybody, and I believe we have an obligation, all the trust we've been imbued with, to answer the bell, to answer the charge of helping people that cannot help themselves. There is nobody else. There is just nobody else. And so we can't change the practice in a global way. We can only change the practice one client at a time. So that's what we choose to do. We invest in each client our fervent hope that we can change the practice for the better. And that's why we do what we do, because they need the help. We can give it to them, and who are we to say no? What it was like to be bullied and to finally be able to be the guy that stands up to the bullies on behalf of people that cannot stand up for themselves. And when are you going to take some time off and relax and enjoy yourself? I'm like, and I'm always, in my head, I always hear my dad's voice say, not till the work's done.